Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. My name is Kaylee and today we are back with another build on BooVille, which today we'll be building the university. This is my favorite build so far, so let's get right into it. Okay, so step number one for this build is to lay down a whole bunch of custom codes. So you probably guessed it already, but we need to whip out our fancy terraforming tools. And for this first go around with the pathing, I'm kind of just guessing the dimensions of this build. And I did lay down two codes to give myself a little bit of a guide as to where I want the center of the build to be, and also for where I want the road to start that will be outside of the school. Because I have the build that will be right outside of the school planned already, so I need to make sure all the roads line up correctly, or everything will come crashing down and then my island will be in turmoil. But I know some of you like to know where on the map we're building, so here's a quick picture of the map. We are in the very back right corner of the island, and there will be a small area between the right side of our school and the beach. And I think I want to put a cute little natural pathway with maybe like a bench or two. But that won't be in this video, but when you see the final product, just imagine a cute little walkway to the right of this build. I did mention in our planning video that I wanted to have a few natural areas on the island to break up the very structured nature of like a Citycore Island. And this is one of the two builds that I have planned, and the next video that will come out for this island will be the build for Nook's Cranny and the Able Sisters shop. And small spoiler alert, I want there to be a little natural area, almost like a park across the street from the tailor shop. And I think it would be cute to have like a few tables and make it look like a little picnic area, because when I was growing up we would go to the parks every once in a while, and we even had like birthday parties there, which was always really fun as a kid. And honestly, it was probably super easy party for our parents to throw, just let the kids go wild on the playground. But they always had these little tables and benches set up, and there would always be this little metal community grill that you could use. So I think I want to almost create an area like that. That also won't be in the shops video, but maybe I'll have a little video on our smaller like filler areas. I don't know, let me know if you'd be interested in seeing how I make these random little areas, or if I should just do it in my spare time and not like post videos about it. But before we get too far into this video, I want to mention that this build is 100% inspired by a build that Nina's Try made on her Citycore Island. I make a couple tweaks to the layout, but the bones of this build were definitely inspired by her build. So I'll have all of her information in the description, and I'll also include links to her VODs where she created her school on her live stream. But this build wouldn't have happened on our island if it wasn't for her build, so definitely check out those VODs. But let's talk about the build for a minute. I laid out the center of the school so far, and now I'm going to work on the second tier of the building. And for this, I'm using a mixture of the medieval and castle items. And I did decide to go with the brown and black version because I felt like it was like the most fall feeling color wise. And you'll see in a little bit that we do use the black decorative pillar and some black street lamps as well. So I think that worked because the black was kind of carried throughout the build, so it doesn't stand out too much. And then for the center of the top tier, I wanted to create a little bell, like how at some of the older schools they have those big bell towers. So I used a nuptial bell in the dark red and brown color behind a castle gate, and I think it looks really cool. Unfortunately, you do kind of have to get close to the bottom level gate to get a good view of the bell, but I think it's such a cool effect that I don't really mind that. I also think it's funny that I'm making this kind of old school style university when the school I went to didn't look like this at all, but I love the look and feel of these older schools that are brick. This one almost reminds me a little bit of Harvard. Harvard I think is like red and white, so this is like red and black, which is a little close. But I went to a pretty unconventional university because I went to a smaller private university, so it didn't look like this at all, and it was pretty small for a school anyways. But it ended up working out in the end because I graduated with my nursing degree very early. I was only 19 when I got my nursing license and started working in the hospital. And it was funny because when I would walk into a patient's room, they'd look at me a little confused and they'd ask me if I was even old enough to be a nurse. And it was funny at the time because I worked on a surgical unit, so I was handing out a bunch of like strong narcotics and other medications, and yet I couldn't even drink alcohol at the time. It just seems a little backwards, but I was a drug dealer basically. I will say though that I have a lot of fond memories of being in nursing school. Our classes, or I guess our cohort, which is what they called it, I think was only a group of maybe like 22 people. So we all went through the same classes with each other for those 2 years, so everyone was pretty close. Of course, we still had our smaller groups within the class, but for the most part, everyone got along pretty well. I had a small group of friends, and I called us the Three Amigos, and I swear we knew like everything about each other. We basically trauma bonded through the experience because school was fun, but it was also very hard because it was an accelerated program, so it was a lot of information in a relatively short time frame. But I think everyone except for one person from our class passed the board exam, which is called an NCLEX for nursing. And I was very proud of myself because the way the boards work is you can have a minimum of 75 questions if you get a certain percent of the questions correct. And then you could also get a maximum of I think it's 145 if you don't get as many correct. So technically you could fail with 75 or pass with 145, or the complete opposite, you could pass with 75 and fail with 145. It just depends on how well you do throughout the exam and the number of questions that you get correct. But anyways, my test turned off at 75 questions, and it took me maybe an hour to finish it. So my parents had dropped me off because my mom is also a nurse, so she knew that it could take a while and wanted to be there to drop me off. But I called her basically an hour later, and she was super surprised at how little time it took me to finish it. And I swear the next couple of days was probably the most nervous I've ever been, because I took the test like the day before the 4th of July. I think it was like the 1st of July, and that was a Friday, I think. So the weekend was the holiday weekend. So I had to wait a little longer to get my test scores because everything was closed during the 4th. But I did pass, and I got a job in the hospital and lived happily ever after. But actually it wasn't very happily ever after because I did not enjoy floor nursing at all. But that's a story for a different time. I work in a completely different area of nursing now, so anyways, that's it. But I did mention a little bit ago that the next build on this island will be for Nooks, Crannies, and the Tailors, and I made them their own little section on the island, and I'm honestly very proud of myself. Because my past 2 islands, I've just left them on the beach and didn't decorate around them. I did decorate them on my first completed island, but for these last 2 themes, I feel like they just didn't fit in, so I just hid them away. But for this island, I felt like they fit in a little bit more because this is a town, and towns obviously have shops, so it was perfect. I also put out a poll on the community page to see who decorates around their shops and who was more like me and just trapped them on the beach and forgot about them. And I was super surprised because 97% of you actually decorate around your shops. I was expecting for a lot more of you to hide them, but I'm proud of all of you for decorating around them because honestly, they can be a little difficult to fit into certain themes. But I do know some people actually play the game as intended and use the shop, so that makes a little bit more sense because I usually just decorate the island and don't play the game the way you're supposed to play it. I will say though, on Clover, I've been playing the game, like actually playing the game. And we're only in the beginning stages of the island, but I've actually collected all the materials for the shop by myself, and I decided that I'm going to try to complete the museum on that island, even though it doesn't necessarily fit the Clover aesthetic. So that was a big moment for myself, prioritizing the gameplay over the aesthetics. Alright, back to the build, just for a few minutes. So in my head, this main section is kind of like the courtyard to the university, and then over on the left we have a small little nook that will be turned into a sitting area, and then I walled off the section on the right, and I'm going to turn this into a little library with some tables for the students to study and like do their homework and everything. And then I had to add a fountain in the center of the courtyard because I feel like every big university has some sort of fountain, and my husband went to a more traditional university and he said that on the last day of the semester, everyone who is graduating like charges the fountain and they all go in and splash around in it, which I think is just such a cute idea. I love like little small traditions like that. If only our villagers could go into the fountain and like recreate this, I think that would be super cute. Also, I don't know if you know this, but on the hour, I think every hour, the fountains do a little special performance for you, and I just happened to see it the other day when I was decorating a different section of the island, and that is such a cute detail that they added to this game. Like, can we just take a moment to appreciate some of the small details they put into this game? Like, of course, maybe we can't do bulk crafting, but at least we get a special fountain show and a weird alien invasion on the TVs at 3 in the morning. It's the small things that matter. Also, about this island, when I was building this school, I didn't realize how big it was until I was editing this video and I added the picture of the map in the beginning of it. And I'm kind of shocked at how little of the island we have left to work on. I guess city core or town core islands, I just feel like they take up space very quickly compared to the other island themes that I've done in the past. And I think it's partially due to the roads being like 5 in width anyways. But I really wanted to make sure we can fit in the fall festival and the pumpkin patch. But I think we're running out of room because we have a total of 16 houses to place, and at the time of this build we only have 5 houses placed in total. I have plans for 7 more, and that still leaves 4 more after that, plus the museum. Honestly, I think I could incorporate the museum into the pumpkin patch because I feel like a lot of the pumpkin patches I've been to in the past, they're like always in front of a church for some reason. So I think a museum could hold a pumpkin patch, right? Like, why not? A museum pumpkin patch, it's perfect. And like I said, I also want to have a festival or a carnival on the island as well, because I really want to use all the plaza items like the Ferris wheel and the merry-go-round and all of that. I also found this super cute face cutout standee code that I want to incorporate, but I don't know if I want to use it on the festival or the pumpkin patch build. But honestly, I feel like those 2 builds could be like right next to each other and they could like lead into each other, because I feel like they're like a similar enough vibe, and you could have like a pumpkin patch at a festival and vice versa, that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be one large build but incorporate both ideas. I also got a suggestion through a comment on one of my videos the other day to make a haunted house build on the island. And I know there is a set of codes created by April ACNH, which is like a big simple panel build, which I actually really love, but I feel like a simple panel build doesn't really fit this island's vibe. It's very like natural and not like fake building-y, except for, you know, the giant school that we're making right now. But even still, that's like with castle and medieval items. So instead, I was thinking we could turn my house into a haunted house, because I remember growing up, there was always a house in our neighborhood that turned their house into a haunted house for trick-or-treating. So you could get your candy and then you could walk through their house and like experience the haunted house. So I figured we can try to use that idea to decorate my house. And I know I've said it countless times on here that I don't like interior decorating, but with a fun idea like a haunted house, I think I could be up for it, because it could almost be like decorating outside. Like, I don't have to use the normal house furniture like a couch or like a chair or something, but instead I could use more fun items like a decayed tree or a gravestone. But that's just an idea I've been thinking about for this island for a little bit, so let me know what your thoughts are on making a haunted house as my character's house. We are now nearing the end of the build, and off screen I just went through and filled this little area between the walls of the university and the actual road that we have with some natural fillers, and I kind of just went back and forth with some trees, shrubs, and a few flowers. And then I also added in a few more of the street lamps with the banners, because I feel like in every picture of a university that I've seen, they have these types of banners with like the school logo or something. But in this case, I just used a fall wreath custom code, which I think is super cute, and it brings a little bit more of that fall vibe to this build. I did try to add in some spooky items every once in a while to try to keep that Halloween and fall decoration throughout it, but I do think we could spook this place up a little bit more, and I might go through and add some more items after we're done with this build. Anyways, here's the final product. But that's the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. Before you leave, make sure to give the video a like, comment, and to subscribe to the channel. If you watched till the end of the video, let me know in the comments what your favorite KK Slider song is. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends!